Under the government's rules right now, people like myself who are on disability are only allowed to have up to $2,000 in savings. If we have more than $2,000 in savings, we run the risk of losing our Medicaid benefits, our waiver benefits, our Social Security benefits altogether because somehow the government has used the number of $2,000 and deemed us millionaires. Hey, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Nick Speaks podcast, the podcast dedicated to giving folks with disabilities a voice, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud. You guys, I'm going to get right into the episode today. 1 week ago today, Donald J. Trump made history with the biggest political comeback since 1984. And today I have a message for President-elect Trump. President-elect Trump, my name is Nicolas Comstock. I am 34 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I am in a wheelchair. I am also legally blind. I have what's known as CMV, cytomegalovirus. What I tell people is that it is a part of the cerebral palsy family. What I like to say, Mr. Trump, is that I'm physically disabled, but mentally enabled. I have been told throughout my life that I would not be able to move out on my own, that I would not be able to have a relationship, pretty much that I would not be able to be successful because of my disabilities. And luckily, I've been able to prove close friends and family wrong because I've been able to do all those things. Today, Mr. Trump, I want to give you just a sneak peek into the lives of people with disabilities. I am on Social Security, SSI. I receive $943 a month. I also receive $194 a month, as the 943 is from the Social Security that I've already qualified for, and then the 194 is withdrawing from my mother's retirement Social Security. So I'm entitled to that. That is known as, I'm sure you're aware, Mr. President, the disabled child benefit. So I'm really bad at math, Mr. President, but I believe that evens out to just a little over $1,100, 943 plus 194. I went to special ed, but I'm very smart, but I'm not really good at math, Mr. President. Forgive me. But what I want to give you a glimpse into, Mr. President, is the very short shoestring that people with disabilities are forced to live on due to the United States government's rules. Now, Mr. President, I know you have a lot on your plate, and I, along with millions of Americans, pray for you every day. We love you. We think of your family often, and I am very proud to say that I voted for you not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I am so glad that come January 20th, you're going to be our president again, because I know that you're going to make America greater than ever before. Before I go on with my message, Mr. President, I want to say to those that say, Nick, you have a disability. President Trump is going to try to take away your Medicaid, take away your Social Security. Folks, if you believe that, if you believe that either side would try to do that, it's a lie. It's a lie. Could you imagine if Mr. Trump got up and said, I'm going to try to take away your Social Security, your Medicaid? What a revolt that would be from both sides of the aisle. And really, the Democrats are the ones that try to use that because the Democrats know that people with disabilities are vulnerable and easily swayed because we automatically have to trust people because of a lot of our complex disabilities. So a lot of times Democrats will use our entitlement programs against us and programs that we use every day to say the other side's going to take away your Medicaid if you vote for them. The other side's going to take away your Social Security if you vote for them. Don't believe the lies that you hear, people with disabilities, from the mainstream media about Mr. Trump trying to take away your Social Security and your Medicaid. In fact, under Mr. Trump's last administration, we received an 8.7 raise, an 8.7% raise. That has been the biggest COLA adjustment. For those of you who don't understand what COLA means, it is the cost of living adjustment. And I'm going to address that with Mr. President today, along with a couple of other things. But I just want to get this out of the way and say, for those of you that are shocked and maybe upset that I voted for President Trump, don't believe the lies that he is going to take away your Medicaid, because that is how the Democrats got your vote, is playing that card and using your vulnerability and your persuasiveness and knowing that you depend on Social Security and Medicaid and knowing that you desperately need it. They use that to tell you, hey, vote for us because we're not going to take away your Medicaid. Well, Mr. Trump's not going to take away your Medicaid. And I firmly believe that if Mr. Trump had not been reelected to office, within a short period of time, Medicaid and Social Security would have ceased to exist. And I will tell you why. Because I believe that more illegals would have been given benefits that people, that natural born citizens who are disabled, like you and me out there listening, would deserve, but it's all been given away to the illegals if Kamala Harris would have gotten into office. And so that is the main reason that I am grateful that President Trump got back into office, because I believe that he will take care of the most vulnerable. Now back to my message to Mr. President-elect Trump. President-elect Trump, under the government's rules right now, people like myself who are on disability are only allowed to have up to $2,000 in savings. If we have up to $2,000, more than $2,000 in savings, we run the risk of losing our Medicaid benefits, our waiver benefits, our Social Security benefits altogether, because somehow the government has used the number of $2,000 and deemed us millionaires if we have over $2,000 in our bank account. Now, I myself, Mr. President, am working hard to get off of the government system because, as I relayed to you earlier in the beginning of this episode, Mr. President, I am physically disabled but mentally enabled, and I am willing to work. but I have been told I am unemployable due to my disabilities by 2 states and 3 different counties. And I am not unemployable, Mr. President. I believe it is simply I don't fit into the government's cookie cutter. I don't want to go just be a customer service agent somewhere. I want to be a public speaker. I am a public speaker. I've been on the Ohio State steps several times, Mr. President, advocating for caregivers to get the pay that they so deserve. And by the way, a special note on that. I heard about your tax credit for family caregivers. And I personally believe, Mr. President, that there should be no tax on home health caregivers whatsoever. And there needs to be a massive raise all across the board, not just in certain states, but there needs to be a federal raise all across the board for all caregivers in nursing homes, hospitals, and especially those that go to people's homes. Because those who work in nursing homes and hospitals make significantly more than those who work in people's homes on a daily basis. Let me get back to some more stats for you, Mr. President. So, as I told you, Mr. President, people like myself who are on disability are only able to save up to $2,000 in a bank account. We're not allowed to have any stocks, bonds, or neutral funds over $2,000. We are also supposed to report any gifts that we receive that are monetary, like any Christmas money or any birthday money. We are supposed to report that. That is what I've been told. And I personally do not think that it's fair. I believe also that the $2,000 limit needs to be raised to 20,000, Mr. President, so that we as people with disabilities can leave a sizable chunk for our family to bury us if we die just because of our disabilities. Because I'm lucky, Mr. President. I'm blessed. I don't have a lot of fragile disabilities. I don't have a lot of things wrong with me. I'm in a wheelchair and I have vision trouble, but I do not have feeding tubes. I do not need 24-hour nursing care. Although I do need a 24-hour caregiver, I don't need 24-hour nurses. But there are those out there who do, and it would be nice if their families could save a considerable chunk of money in the person's name that has the disability so that if and when that person dies, first of all, if they die unexpectedly, they already have a nest egg under them. And second of all, when it is their time to die, their family doesn't have to worry about where the money's going to come from because that family member was able to establish a good chunk of money. So I believe that that 2000 cap, that $2,000 cap, Mr. President, that Social Security has in place needs to go from 2,000 to 20,000. Now, I believe last year, the year before, Mr. President, that there was a bill going around in Congress that was going to raise the cap from 2000 to 10 from 2000 to $10,000, and it was also going to eliminate the Marriage Penalty Act, where that if two people get married and one person is disabled, they could potentially lose all of their benefits. The disabled party in the relationship could potentially lose all of their benefits just because they've chosen to spend life with somebody else in holy matrimony. Mr. President, I do not believe this is fair. This is not marriage equality, and this needs to change. Also, Mr. President, I believe more people with disabilities need to be given a chance to work. I was told one time in my social media comments that over 90% of people with disabilities are not working because it's just very simple. The people that are responsible for hiring folks with disabilities or finding folks with disabilities jobs, they don't want to think outside the box, Mr. President, and say, what can this person with a disability do? They have a very unique cookie cutter. And if someone like myself does not fall in line with their cookie cutter, then I'm just out of luck. And that is why I have had to carve my own path, Mr. President, and go out on a limb and start this podcast called Nick Speaks, the podcast dedicated to giving the disabled a voice, where we speak up and speak out and speak loud. I also have over 67,000 followers on TikTok, Mr. President, where I share stories of everyday life that I've had with my caregivers, troubles that I've had being disabled. I give tips to special needs parents, and I really try to be a voice for the disabled community. Something that I also believe needs to happen, Mr. President, is that more people with disabilities need to be in Congress because able-bodied people do not understand the daily struggles that we go through with home health care, with our medicines, with just living our everyday lives. And I believe America needs to see the struggles that people with disabilities have every day. The only way that can happen, Mr. President, is that people with disabilities are given a chance to be appointed to positions of power in Congress. And I believe that there needs to be a bill passed that needs to allow people with disabilities to run for Congress. Of course, there needs to be vetting to be sure that they are mentally competent and able to do so. And I agree with that. But the option needs to be there. And people with disabilities need to have more of a voice in this country. And I believe that also, Mr. President, the laws about parking and a handicap spot need to be changed. I believe it's just a severe fine, but I believe that parking in a handicap spot should be a felony because there are many people who just park in a handicap spot, Mr. President, for pure convenience, and it leaves thousands of people like me inconvenience because somebody was just going into the store to get a few items and they didn't want to walk a few extra steps to get to where they needed to go. Now, I understand, Mr. President, that not all disabilities are visible, so there might need to be some exceptions to this. But I do believe there needs to be a crackdown on people who park in handicap spots and who don't and who do it intentionally over and over again. Maybe a felony is too strong of a punishment, but I do believe there needs to be a severe crackdown on those who park in handicap spots and know that they don't need it. I also believe that there needs to be strong Medicaid and Social Security reform. I don't know how it's going to be done, but I know that you're smart enough, Mr. President, to figure it out. Us people with disabilities need you to be our voice because there are thousands of people with disabilities who cannot speak up for themselves. and people with disabilities like myself have been silenced for too long. Mr. President, please hear me. Please be an ally for the disabled community, and please be our voice, because we need someone who is smart, business-minded, someone who cares. We need someone like you who is an ally for the disabled community. And we need more of a voice now more than ever. And I believe that you can give that to the disabled community, Mr. President. Again, my name is Nicolas Comstock. I am the host, Mr. President, of the Nick Speaks podcast, where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud, and give a voice to those in the disabled community. I hope to meet you soon, and I pray for you every single day. I really do. And I am so glad that you are going to be our president again. Please take what I've said into serious consideration, because we do need that that cap, that $2,000 cap lifted to, I believe, $20,000. We also need Medicaid and Social Security reform, and we also need more disabled folks' voices at higher tables of power. Also, Mr. President, I don't know if you're aware that people with disabilities are not allowed to be insured for life insurance. 99% of life insurance carriers will not service people with disabilities in this country. This is what I've been told by a close family member who sells life insurance. He did some calling, he did some checking around, and he said that 99% of the life insurance companies in this country will not insure someone with a disability, because we obviously have a disability and they think we're going to die or something. Well, here's the news, Mr. President. We're all going to die. So I believe that people with disabilities deserve the right to be insured with life insurance. I believe that this would also help those special needs parents, if their special needs children had life insurance policies on them, so that it would take the burden off the special needs parents of, oh my God, my special needs child died. How am I going to pay for the funeral? So yes, Mr. President, we need life insurance as well for people with disabilities in this country. Mr. President, I hope I've given you a lot to think about when it comes to people with disabilities, and I'm sure that people with disabilities that are out here watching and listening can give you a lot more than what I did. And these are just some things right off the tip of my mind, Mr. President, that need to be dealt with when it comes to folks with disabilities. So thank you for listening to me today, President-elect Trump. I hope to meet you someday soon, and I appreciate you for listening to this message, Mr. President-elect Trump, and I appreciate all of you for listening to this message today. Thank you so much for listening to the latest installment of Nick Speaks, the podcast where we speak up, speak out, and speak loud, and give a voice to the disabled community. Until next time, bye-bye.